Hi, this is Karen Rowland, founder of Hush Providence. Welcome to my new weekly Wellbeing podcast, Real People, Real Conversations, Real Life. We'll be talking about all things relating to the human experience. What makes up a life? What creates joy and happiness? What makes humans the same or different? How do we care for ourselves and each other? We'll even try to answer the 5 W's of well-being: who, what, when, where, and why, and how this all fits together. A little ambitious? Maybe. But join us as we connect with local topic experts, peers, mentors, and healers. Welcome to today's episode of Hush Providence, a well-being podcast. I'm so grateful to introduce today's guest, Keely Taylor. She's the vice president and senior producer at Adventures. She's been there for almost 12 years. Former Hasbro colleague, a member of the Heart Circle, which I'll talk about in a minute. First, I'm completely jealous. I know you just returned from a family vacation in Greece. The pictures were amazing. The headshot you forwarded for this interview just says everything about it. You must have had an amazing time, I'm sure.
It was wonderful. Yeah.
So welcome home and welcome to the podcast. So May is Mental Health Awareness Month. It's the 2023 theme is More Than Enough, Understanding Our Value. And back in the fall of 2022, I started a grief group called the Heart Circle. It was a place for people to heal. I lost my husband and infant son many years ago, but in many ways, I still deal with a trauma response to that. So this was sort of creating a safe space for women to share their love story, as well as their story of loss. The group was intentionally small. We met once a week for 8 weeks, focused on specific topics, and we continue to meet monthly, honoring each unique story, all different, but in many ways the same. So Keely's offered today to share her story. Thank you, Keely.
Thank you for having me, Karen. And thank you for starting the Heart Group. I was very appreciative for being able to, be with these amazing women and hear their stories and speak to them. So my story is that I lost my husband to suicide. And he took his own life on September 2nd, 2021. We were together for 17 years. We met in 2004 and we were married in 2009. So married for almost 12 years. But of course, your spouse, you love them, you trust them. We talked about mental health. We were very open about discussing it. So it definitely, it was a shock of a lifetime. Your worst nightmare come to life for that to have happened. Since then, I've definitely learned a lot more about suicide, some of the warning signs, how to help, how to talk about it. And I'm trying to, heal a little bit by giving back and advocating for suicide prevention.
So you want to talk a little bit about the walk you're doing in DC in June?
Yeah, June 3rd. I am joining people from all over the country, survivors, or anyone connected with the cause, to walk overnight. It's called the Out of Darkness Walk. And it starts at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. at 8 p.m. And people walk 16 to 18 miles. I don't know the exact route just yet. Overnight, and you end the walk back at the Lincoln Memorial as the sun comes up. So it's very symbolic, I think, of trying to bring the awareness out of the darkness for suicide prevention, something that, has a lot of stigma still attached to it. It's getting better. Certainly people are talking about mental health more, which is helpful. But suicide still has a lot of stigma attached to it and a lot of misconnotations, I think, or incorrect connotations associated with it.
You recently had an epiphany that you shared with me, and if you could share that now, I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, certainly after something like this happens, I think, you want to figure it out. I think you want to know why. You want to know what happened. You want to know, how could this person that I love have done this? And for a long time, I mean, we're talking about this being almost a year and a half, little over a year and a half now. I could not understand how someone could make this decision. It didn't make sense to me. My recent epiphany was tying it or connecting it to the concept of euthanasia. I have unfortunately lost friends to things like cancer and ALS, which are awful, sometimes terminal diseases. And in that context, if I diagnosed with a terminal illness, if it were just going to get worse to the point where I would no longer have the ability to speak or think or anything like that, I would not want to go through that, and I would not want to put my family through that. So I think in the context of people who die by suicide, they think they're making that decision, but they are basing it off of false data. Their brain has lied to them and told them that there is no end to this, and that their family would be better off, and that there is only suffering ahead of them, or at least this is my interpretation. I don't know that I'll ever know what was going through my husband's head at the time. I will forever wonder about that, but it has helped me at least understand how he came to that decision and how much pain he must have been in to think it was never going to end.
That's such a unique perspective that I've never heard before. So thank you for sharing that. And now a shout out to our sponsor, the Good Seed Market, 138 Central Avenue, Seekonk, Massachusetts. Started in 1989 by 3 friends with a goal of creating a neighborhood market offering simple, natural, organic products for a healthy lifestyle. Now a member of the independent Natural Foods Retailer Association, our friends at the Good Seed are offering our listeners a 10% discount on their first purchase just by mentioning Hush Providence. The Good Seed Market, a place where ideas can grow. I have a couple questions. All loss is difficult and complicated. What would you like people to know, and how can they show empathy?
I think, people facing loss, we don't talk enough about grief. I think in the American society in general. So I think people don't know how to deal with it. They don't know how many times have you heard, I don't know what to say. And that's okay, not knowing what to say. I think what I wanted after this, all I wanted people to do was just recognize and validate what I was going through. That it was this very terrible thing that I have to process and go through. There are platitudes of, he's in a better place, or he's not suffering anymore. And those were not helpful for me in particular. And I know, having talked with a number of folks in the similar situations, that it's not necessarily helpful for them either. So I think it's just validating the experience. I'm sorry you're going through this, And
just saying, I don't know really what to say, but I'm here for you.
Yeah. Yes.
And yeah. Self-care is a topic that we covered earlier in the podcast series. How are you taking care of yourself during this difficult time?
I think what I hope most people realize by now is that you can't do it alone. Yes, self-care has to be self-motivated, and you do have to take care of yourself, but you sometimes have to look for those outside connections to help. So, therapy is definitely a form of self-care. So are support groups. So are, everything from connecting with friends and family. Certainly exercise and eating right is a form of self-care, but that's a lot easier to do when you have someone who's encouraging you to do those things. And I think especially someone going through loss can sometimes lose sight of those things. So it's nice to have a reminder of let's go for a walk, or let's go get something to eat, to help that along.
It looks like you've got a little friend in the background there that might be helpful as well.
Yes, I have two cats. They have been unbelievably helpful, a source of comfort, for sure. They just help heal so much, just to be able to hold them and have them on my lap and be here with me.
Keely, you are doing an amazing job. It's only been a year and a half. That is not very long at all. And all that you've already been able to accomplish is just inspirational. So, we're all here for you. You know that.
Yes.
I do want to go over some of the statistics just because they're unbelievable. So in 2020, suicide was the 12th leading cause of death in the United States, claiming nearly 46,000 lives and on the rise following the pandemic, especially with teens and minority groups. 1 in 5 US adults experience some type of mental illness each year, and under half actually receive treatment. That's scary. I would encourage everyone to get involved in the campaign in one way or another. You can walk, you can fundraise, you can volunteer, share your story. And if you're struggling, or if you know someone that is struggling, you can dial or text 988, which is a suicide and crisis lifeline, to access mental health crisis services. Those are just some of the national numbers that I've shared, but Keely, I know you have some local numbers to talk about as well.
Yeah, there is a local chapter of the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention that has a lot of resources, a little more tailored to the folks of Rhode Island, for instance. Part of the advocacy we're doing is to hopefully raise funds and get more support for things like the 988 hotline. The 988 hotline is a national service, but it's supported by local organizations. The hope and idea being that if you are a Rhode Islander and you call, you're getting a Rhode Islander, you're getting someone you can feel connected to. More funding is needed for that, even that local support, even that hotline. When you think about it, the 988 hotline isn't currently offered for Spanish-speaking individuals. It's only in English, which seems ridiculous. There is a special, you can when you call into 988, there is a special offshoot if you are a veteran, so that you can talk to someone specifically who is a military veteran and get support there, because it's a very specific thing. But I mean, there are certainly a lot of specific communities that would benefit from connecting with someone who understands, at the very least, their lifestyle, LGBTQ or Spanish speaking, that kind of thing. And we're a long ways away from that. So
just by supporting that, you're going to be supporting, more access for people.
Yeah, for sure. In Rhode Island, suicide was the 14th leading cause of death in, I believe, 2020, based on these numbers. And you talking about the impact on teens and youth, in Rhode Island, it's the 3rd leading cause of death for ages 10 to 24. So that teenage, young adult group is very vulnerable. And again, like you said, the pandemic really affected that isolation, that loneliness that I think people feel. And certainly we're coming out of the pandemic, but I think it's still in mental health in general is still in a fragile place.
Absolutely. The Surgeon General just came out, was it last week, talking about loneliness and how we have to combat that. And so, yeah, there's a lot of people struggling out there, and the numbers we've talked about were from 2020. So those numbers are definitely higher.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And
go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't know what I was going to say.
That's okay. I think you said a lot.
Okay.
You said a lot, and I appreciate you here today and sharing your story and being so courageous. Good luck on the walk. And how can people help you with that fundraising? Do you have a contact or connection?
I do. If I send you a link, would you be able to share a link?
Absolutely. I'll definitely do that.
I'll have you post the link. I actually am the team captain for the Rhode Island chapter team. So 25% of funds that I raise go right back to the local chapter as well. So we're certainly fundraising for the national chapter that's going to help fund research and advocacy. But some of those funds will go back directly to the local chapter as well.
That's amazing. Thank you for that. Yeah, definitely share the link and I will share it with everyone. This has been amazing. I really appreciate you participating. So today was actually the launch of the Hush Providence Wellbeing podcast. We have JJ Jacobs next week, and then this episode will air. So stay tuned for that, and I will be promoting it as well. So thank you again for participating. Thank you to our listeners for supporting this. And until next time, be well. Thanks, Keely.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you so much for listening to Hush Providence, a well-being podcast. This would not be possible without the incredible help from Jamie Farinella and Stephanie Whitehead on branding and logo concept, John Papa's endless generosity, David Davignon and Austin Lynch for their skilled technical expertise, and of course, our amazing guests and all of you, our listeners. Until next time, be well.